The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, good evening or good morning, depending on which time zone you're in. This is Gavin Phillips with LayerCake, and also known as Studio Magic. I'd like to welcome you to this webinar about the picture windows here and Studio Magic 1 and 2. And also with us today is Alan Mayer, the founder of LayerCake and owner of LayerCake, and he'll be introducing himself shortly. Do a quick sound check and do some frequently asked questions. Go ahead, Alan.
Hey everybody, welcome to Studio Magic webinar. As Gavin said, my name is Alan Mayer. Gav today is going to be presenting Studio Magic 1 and 2 and picture windows. Before we begin today, let's go over a couple of frequently asked questions so we won't waste your time in the webinar. First thing is, does it work with elements? And the picture windows will work with elements, but Studio Magic 1 and 2 only works with CS 5 through CC 2015. Does it work with a Mac and a PC? Absolutely. Training images and videos, do you have those? I've always said Gav's the best in the business, and we guys just want to make sure that we have your backs. The training images are terrific. You have all kinds of videos and written tutorials authored by myself, and we have great technical support. You can call us anytime. We are literally there to answer in English, by the way.
Yeah, great. And just to reiterate what Alan was saying there about the plugins, okay, or the panel, should I say? They once have been installed into Photoshop, and there's a very simple install. They're very similar to a plugin. They show up under Window Extensions, and you can see here Studio Magic 1 and Studio Magic 2, okay? And because they are Photoshop panels, they can be docked together just as any other Photoshop panel can. So you could have them, docked with anything. You could have them top and bottom like this, or you can drag them, if I can drag it out here, and then you can have them next to each other. That's normally the way I work, so I've got them right, so you can just click between the two of them. And yep, they work with CS5 through CC 2015 and beyond, always going forward. So just so that you're familiar with all of that. Okay, so we are going to just start here because we get a lot of questions. Obviously a lot of photographers using Lightroom, and it's a great program. It does a lot of things quickly, but it's no replacement for Photoshop. But what's great about it is you've got this way of working between Lightroom, this workflow, which is very streamlined between Lightroom and Studio Magic 2 or 1 in Photoshop. And the way you do that, so if you find a photo that you want to work with, that you want to bring in and do something in with Studio Magic, you can just right click on it, edit in, and go up here, edit in Photoshop, doesn't matter which version it is, edit a copy. I always use that way I'm not working on an original, and it's going to pop it up for us in Photoshop here. Now when you get these layered files, you're going to have a red layer on there, which will show you exactly where to drop your subject into. Okay, so for instance, with this one, of course, we're going to use the little girl here, and I'm just going to show you here right away how Studio Magic 1, the cutout panel, works. Okay, part of it at least. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove her from a background. Okay, everything starts, any kind of removing anyone from any background always starts with a selection, okay? And as Alan mentioned, anything you see here and a lot more is all covered in the concise movie tutorials that you receive with this. So, if there's anything here that you're not familiar with or you haven't touched on, don't worry, because that'll all be covered for you in, like I said, the movies. Now, with
I just want to cover something here real quickly. What Gavin is doing is he is actually using the Quick Select tool from Photoshop, and he's going from the inside, and he's doing that because the outside of the subject is not a solid background. If it was a solid background, he would use the magic wand. So go ahead, Gav. Now you're in.
Yeah, I just switched to quick mask mode there, where you can press Q on the keyboard and you can get an idea of what your selection is. With these selection, the basic selection tools, that's about as good as we're going to get for an initial selection. We don't want to waste a lot of time on that. You can select Pro Mask here, and I'm going to do it this time just to show you what it gives you, okay? And then you click on Detailed Cutout. This is in Studio Magic 1, okay? And it's going to pop up with Refine Edge in Photoshop, but the real important part here, look at these sliders. LayerCake had a Photoshop expert whose particular expertise was removing people from their backgrounds, and he set up all of these sliders so that you don't have to. All you do is resize or get the size of your brush, and all I do is here I just paint around the edges of where that green is still in her hair, okay? And you just go through there and it's going to cut all that out for you. So up the top here I've got a little bit of green from the grass, it's still up there, and I'm just going to make the brush a bit smaller and go around the edges here of a hair there, and it'll clean that up as well, and across the edge here. So all you're doing is you're just painting over these areas and it's cleaning it up for me. Now there's a little bit of grass still in the edge of her hair there. We've cleaned all that up. Now you click OK, and it's going to remove her from the background. It puts on, Studio Magic puts on a neutral layer here. Now this can be any color you want. In this particular case it's gray, okay? It's always going to be gray as a default. We can see she's been completely removed, got the checkerboard back there. But my point is, you can double click on this, make it any color you want. You want something back there. And here we have, this is the Pro Mask. It puts on basically a layer mask. That's all it is. And as you're probably familiar with layer masks, you can paint with black or white. Maybe you wanted to add some hair back in, or you wanted to trim the hair, or whatever you wanted to do with a layer mask. It's very simple to work with that, but we don't need to touch it. Let's just take a look at her before we drag her into the picture window, alongside the original here, but we've kind of duplicated, cloned in extra background there. Now what you would do here is you'd right click on this and apply the layer mask, drag her in, okay, and we can see here, I mean, it's it's a really good cutout. Even the wispy hair on the side has the green grass been removed from it. If we compare it to the one on the left there, but also, if you want to see the contrasting differences, obviously with the gray background here, we can see that she's been completely cut out. Do you want to add anything to this, Alan, while we're comparing these two?
Yeah, I was just watching you when you're in your selection process, and you needed, when you were in Refine Edge, you needed to bring the brush up a little bit more. So on the left, as you see the swoop of her hair, you missed that part, and that's only because when you were demoing it, you missed that part, and a little bit on the right as well. But you guys will work with it, and you'll become pros in this thing.
But actually, Alan, if you look at this one here, look at her hair on the left there. I don't see anything. I don't see any grass in there. So for me, I'm looking around the edges here. I don't really see. There might be a little bit in here, and this is where, of course, the layer mask would come in. If you wanted to trim that off a bit, you can do that. But anyway, what we're going to do next is, now if there's any questions, of course, at any time, let us know, because we don't want to rush too far ahead with... Now, what you're going to have is, I just forgot to add this here, but you're going to have a red layer here, which in all of the picture windows, this is a duplicate that we brought into Lightroom. That's why it doesn't have it in there. But it'll just say select here to place your subject, okay? And that's what you're going to do. You're going to resize her, make her a bit smaller here, because she's going to be too big for the picture window. Now we're going to resize her again, of course, when we drag her in, but you want to get her kind of close. And now you see she's right there where we want her. Now we're just got to kind of reposition her and make her smaller, okay? So, just using the free transform tool, maneuvering her around. I'll move her up now with the arrow keys there. There we go. and she's inside the picture window. You can, of course, position her wherever you want. Do you think she needs to be a bit smaller, or what do you think, Al?
A little smaller, but I think she's really unhappy. She wants to go outside, Gav.
I think that's what
Chicago.
it is.
I have to tell you something. I'm from Chicago. I can't even tell you how many times I looked out a window like that and so forlorn that I couldn't go out and play.
Now, we have another one here. I just want to show you because, as Alan was saying, these are like your unique signature templates. So you could turn her off and have a dog in there, or you can drag, of course, anyone in there. There's Fido. He's trying to get out in the rain. He likes it out there. So the whole point of these picture windows is they're great framing devices. You don't need a studio, of course, to do this, and you can bring anyone and drag and cut them out, drag and drop them in. And then show that to your clients. But getting back to the one that we brought in from Lightroom, the whole purpose to this is that once you're done with, you're finished with this, you know what, we could add some rain, couldn't we, Al? Why don't we do that? Add a little bit of rain. So now we're jumping into Studio Magic 2. This is where the compositing comes in, okay? And adding rain is part of Studio Magic 2. Okay, so I'm going to put in a bit of light rain here. I'm going to have a bit of motion blur. The direction intensity I'm going to put up to about 70%. And you'll see how all of this works. Everything comes with a layer mask, so it's very simple to make any changes to it. As we can see, that's really heavy rain. It's a bit strong, so I'm dropping the intensity back, and you just click on Update, and it's going to drop it back even, obviously that's to update it when I've moved the slider around. I might drop it back a bit more. But what's really important here is everything comes with a layer mask. So if I want to just grab, I've already got a brush. The Studio Magic picks the brush for you automatically. You can change it if you want to. All you want to make sure is that you've got a soft brush. You want to make sure it's really soft, and I probably wouldn't come in at 100%, maybe 70, just to remove some of that rain, say the wind was blowing it away from the window, right? So that we can see her face.
And you can add the rain back in. If you put X on your keyboard, you're changing.
If you click X, this switches to white. You can also switch it here, and I could bring that rain back in. So layer masks are really simple. All you're doing is a couple of things. Well, three things at the maximum: painting with white, painting with black, and just adjusting the opacity of how much you want to remove or bring back in. Okay.
And one other thing that you could do is add the light ray to it, light mask, paint with light.
Okay, we could do
Studio
that.
Magic 1.
And then I guess we could flatten it and then bring in the actions. Okay, so Studio Magic 1 now, which is the cutout panel, the shadow caster, and light brush. Okay. Now with the paint with light, this is great because it puts on this, once again, layer with our with a layer mask there, and I'm just going to paint in the light, and this gives you a really nice vignette effect that you've got complete creative control over, just to kind of focus it on the little girl there. You can go up in the amount of the opacity to make the vignette more pronounced, but normally I drop it back so it's quite subtle. Somewhere in the 35 to 50% range. And what's cool about this is once you're finished with it, we brought it in from Lightroom. You just go up to File, Save, and then we got to give it a few seconds here just to save, and then File, Close. And now go back to Lightroom, okay? And there it is. There's our, what I did forget to do was apply the actions to it, but that's okay. We can do that. We'll do that shortly. But here it is with the rain we just brought in Lightroom, okay? And that shows you the workflow between Lightroom and Studio Magic 2 or Studio Magic 1 in Photoshop. And the layers are all kept intact, of course. If I open this up again in Photoshop, all the layers would be there if I wanted to make any changes. So just wanted to cover that. And let's move on here. If there are any questions, you're keeping an eye on that, right, Al?
I am indeed. Yes, I am.
Now, with this one, of course, the bride and groom, it works perfectly and is a great brides really love these beautiful picture windows. They really work so well with brides. And if we put on some rain here as we did before, I'll show you how these windows work. It's pretty cool the way that you can get rid of the raindrops off of the windows. So I've got the intensity there at about 40%. We're bringing in the rain once again. I've got that soft brush that probably have it at about just to remove some of it. But if you go down here in all of your picture windows, you've got several different ways to work. You've got smoke glass, rainy glass here. There's a lot of other things that you can remove. For instance, look, we've got a folder here with the tree shadow. So, if you don't want that, you can turn it off. We've also got the chandelier, which can be turned on or off. Okay, so there's a lot of parts to these picture windows that you can, you've got complete control over. And the rainy glass is another one. It's got the rain there, which I can remove with a layer mask. Now, I've got my brush at about 60%, so you can see I can remove as much of that rain from the window pane as I want to. Now, if that's too much, I can switch to white, maybe drop it back to 30% and bring in a bit more rain. So, just by tweaking it between these two and changing the opacity, you can do so many things. And you've got smoke glass here as well. So in this particular case, of course, we're going to want the rainy glass. So do you want to add anything to that, Alan? Or
Well, yeah, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that the tree as a framing device is on its own separate layer, as is the chandelier. So if you want to use the tree and drop it into another photo and use that as a framing device, it's all available. So everything's there, including there's going to be window boxes with flowers and all. As Gav proceeds with the webinar, you'll see that all of those elements are available to you that you can put onto a transparent layer and use them in different settings.
Right.
A couple questions before you go further. Can you add your own windows to this? Yeah, you can create your own windows as well. Absolutely. Use Studio Magic 1 and 2 and drop in your subjects. And color match. Gavin's going to be coming up with color match in a few minutes. You'll see how that works. Is the webinar available for later viewing? It's recorded, so probably within a week. You go to our layercakeelements.com, and if you go to tutorials, upper left-hand corner, there's webinars, and all the webinars have been recorded for your viewing pleasure. And someone asked about let's see, the framing actions. Yeah, the framing actions, you'll get those within 24 hours from the time of your purchase. Those framing actions will be sent to you.
Yeah,
if you didn't get them, let me know, and I'll forward them to you.
Right, exactly. And just to give you guys a real quick visual reference of what the framing actions do. They're completely different to what you've seen in a lot of Photoshop plugins and other actions out there. They're doing very different things using custom Photoshop styles, like this glass inset here. We're always trying to come up with different things for you guys, and I think you can see that there's a lot of ways to go with these framing actions, and you can mix and match them. You've got a lot of different, virtually unlimited ways to go by just clicking, and I'll show you how they work shortly, but this just gives you a quick visual reference there, because they are very popular, and it's a great asset to be able to have that included with any purchase you make through Studio Magic or LayerCake within that 24 hours. So let's get back to our picture windows here, and now for this one, okay, let's bring in some snow first and do something a bit different, and this will show off the different frosted window here. So if we fill this with white, how you're going to be receiving it, so it's all filled in there, and that's how you're going to there's so many different ways you can work with just one particular picture window. So for instance, with this, we can make it a snowy seasonal type of look to it, I'm going to once again grab the brush. Now you can right click inside your image, just as a heads up for you guys. It's a shortcut to get to a lot of the brush presets and parameters you need, and make sure you got a nice soft brush there. And just paint away. I need to be painting with black, of course. Some of that frosted window, so we see our our couple there. And we can also add, what I like to do is add a layer mask to this group, because maybe I don't want, a lot of that heavy snow on their faces, a little bit, so we keep the realism there. And now I want to add some more snow, okay? So I've got
When you say you want to add a layer mask, actually Studio Magic or LayerCake adds the layer mask for you. So all you have to do is just click on the brush, and then you can start erasing. So anyway, it's all there for you. And by the way, all of this is in the tutorials. There's a movie tutorial that's absolutely terrific on this. So whatever Gavin's showing you, that movie tutorial is in much greater detail and depth, and it's really, really simple once you get the hang of it.
Yeah, I mean, this is really, as Alan said, and as they said in the Photoshop User Magazine, it's a huge time saver, and you're harnessing the power of Photoshop, but we're just clicking a button. We're just doing, everything's done for you here, with this plugin, or extension as they're called. So once again, I've added, I'm going to drop back the intensity a little bit. So you can just go up and down if it's a bit too much, and like Alan said, we got a layer mask here if I want to get rid of some of that off of their faces. Now I want some to build up more flakes, to add to the realism. I might not want 100% intensity. Create, and it's going to put another layer on there. So everything's controllable. You've got creative control over everything. The layer mask is already selected. All I do is just paint on it to keep my models there. And now, this is actually my favorite one.
Put the large foreground. I want to make a couple suggestions.
Go ahead.
That I think would be really cool. This is the large foreground flakes that he's adding.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then you can start, and then the brush is automatically defaulted, so all you have to do is erase.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, I think what would be cool, Gav, if you try and go to Studio Magic 2 and try a little hyper zap on them. Let's give them a little bit of punch. So that would be under hyper zap, and this is a Grunge Boost feature, and this is really cool.
Yeah, this is great for really, I mean, it's great for sports, it's great for high school kids, but it also works on even this shot as well. So you control that. I normally keep the saturation about -25, the intensity you might bump up to about 80, create.
Oh, yep, that's it, yeah.
And it's going through a lot of
them pop.
Yeah, it's going through a lot of steps for you automatically in Photoshop. As you can see, this is quite a complex set of different steps. And look at that. It gives them that really, I don't know, it's a grunge look, but it's not, it's not really too grungy where it's over the top. But if it's a bit too much, normally with the intensity, drop it back a little bit, update. And you've got it here in its own group. You can see that right, Al. It's come through okay.
Yeah, and what you can do is then you can turn it to a black and white, or you can, why don't you just drop it all the way to saturation, all the way to the left, and hit update, and you can create a black and white with it.
Right.
Or you can bring the saturation back in.
Right. Yep.
And then let me make maybe make another suggestion with you, Gav. Why don't we go ahead and add a little blue to it. So go to lighting effects.
Okay.
And add some cooling to it, just a little bit, and make sure you're on the top layer. Go in the top layer. There you go.
Well, don't we want color pop for this?
No, that's okay. Just add some bluing to it.
All right, fine.
Cool.
Yep. Let's global. Yeah, there we go. Well, maybe a bit more intensity. There we go. Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe bump the intensity up a bit more. Update.
Now take it way back, the intensity.
There we go. Now we're getting close.
Just a cooling effect, and now give it a paint with light.
Let's just.
And by the way, and when Gavin is doing this, what you guys are doing, you can create all these different templates. You can sit there for an hour and create 100 templates just with one picture, and before you know it, now all you have to do with that little red line that Gavin put in the layer palette, all you have to do is cut your subject out and drop it in, whether it's Fido or whether it's high school kid or fashion models or bride and groom. A bride and groom would be beautiful in there as there you go.
Yep, perfect. Exactly. Yep. And what's cool about this is, like we said, now if we go to our layers here, the whole point of this is you turn them off, and we got a few. Oh, we got the, and you can put somebody else in there. So you just use these as your own unique signature styles, as it were, because there's nothing else on the market like these picture windows. Nobody else does anything like it at all. So they are totally unique. So any questions?
And then what you could do, well, what you might do is go ahead and go into Studio Magic 2 and go into the color, go to HyperZap.
Go to HyperZap, okay.
Yeah, and then you can add different colors. And go to the color pop.
Well, we did that with the color match. You want to do more of that, Al? Or?
Yeah, just do a couple more. Just show the drop down and how many varieties they have. You can go crazy with all the different varieties.
Yeah. Teal is real nice. And once again, you can drop it back. If it's a bit too strong, you've got a lot of ways to go there. So yeah, that gives you another way to put a nice tint on your image.
A duotone is what it is, actually.
So you can. The nice part about this is, you see, we've got both of them here on the layers. You can flip flop between the two, see which one you prefer. And it takes a few seconds to put one on. I personally prefer the first one we did, because that cooling looks really nice. But you've got, it's entirely up to you. So let's jump into our friend here, Mr. Muscles, because sports is a huge, of course, it's a huge market. A lot of sports, high school sports.
Ron is one of our favorite models, and I have to tell you something. The guy does not play any sports at all, but boy, he models.
That's pretty funny.
And he's a great guy. I love the guy, but he's plays nothing. He's a musician.
He must work out, though, right?
Oh, he works out all right.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, with this now, obviously the Grunge Boost is going to be perfect on him. Once again, selected subject. I'd leave the intensity, maybe bump it up to about 80. Going to work just right on him. And let's zoom in here a little bit so we can get a closer look. It's so handy, this HyperZap. I use it all the time to get that kind of grungy look, and it's just so convenient.
I had somebody in our print competition said, okay, now I'm used to, and I'm not knocking Topaz. I love the guys, and a lot of the guys have worked with us and for us. But there's one that he's so used to, my friend Doc, and he said, I use that all the time, this Topaz and filter. I said, well, I tell you what, we're going to the print competition together. I said, I will bet you that this one is better. And he said nothing can be better, and he ended up using the Grunge Boost, and it just blew his socks off. He said, holy mackerel. Because what this does, it emphasizes the highlights and the shadows as well. It's just not one filter over it. It also picks up, again, highlights and the shadows.
Right, yeah. It does a lot more than just a kind of a one-click filter. Let's run this again on a different guy we got here, who also works very well with, I mean, it's just it's a really cool effect. If I want to drop a bit, give him a bit more saturation, update. And you've got to merge layers here. What this does is it merges that Grunge Boost into one layer. You can turn it on or off, see how you prefer it. Of course, if you wanted to, you could merge it down into that layer. And with this, I think it's perfect to do. We normally finish up with this light brush, which is part of Studio Magic 1, as you've probably seen, and it's really simple just to get this nice vignetting and focusing on our model here. So are there any other questions? I know that a lot of people are interested in flyaway hair cutouts and all that good stuff, so we need to obviously keep moving here. But
one question here: what is the difference between Windows 1 and Windows 2? Windows 1 is more seasonal, such as winter, and Windows 2, or the reverse, is more seasonal, like summer. So that's the difference between the two of them. Go ahead, Gavin.
Okay. So yeah, we do get a lot of questions about the cutout panel and cutting out models with flyaway hair, and that's what we have here, of course. So once again, the way to start is virtually all the time we're either starting with Quick Select or the Magic Wand. We'll start with the Magic Wand in this particular case.
And before you continue, I want to say the difference so someone understands. This is a solid white background, so therefore you use the Magic Wand. If it was a complicated background, then you would use the Quick Select, and you would select from the inside.
Exactly. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to leave in you see this is part of the table or something that she's leaning on. She's got a reflection there. I'll show you how to cut this out using the Pro Mask. Now, as I touched on earlier, you can press Q on your keyboard, which gives you a visual idea of how your cutout's looking. Now, we're not going to get into all of her hair here. That's the purpose of the using the detail cutout here. But we're going to select Pro Mask, detail cutout. I'm going to leave this down the bottom here. I'll show you how easy that is to clean up. We've got all of our settings here already preset for us. All I need to do is just go in, like I said, and select the size of the brush. So I might go a bit smaller. Go ahead, Al.
No, the brush is already pre-selected for you. All you have to do is just increase the size of it or decrease the size of it, as Gavin's showing you.
Right, right. And
that's simple.
All I do now is you just paint around the edges of her hair. That's all I'm doing. I'm just going around the edges here where the white is inside. Release it, and look, it's grabbed all of that. Go over there a bit more. That's good. I'm going to go over the top. Now we start on the other side. So it's literally like painting by numbers. I mean, you just drag through this. None of the playing with the sliders in Refine Edge. I remember in the old days we used to do channels, and it took a month of Sundays to do something like this. And that's what all of the, LayerCake hired a bunch of Photoshop experts, teachers, and, they said, how long would it take you to do this? And just the time saving alone is really where it's worth it. So I'm just finishing up, just grabbing those other spots. Maybe there's another spot there. Yeah, we got it all there. Click OK, and that's where you're going to see we've got our layer mask, and this is where it comes in handy, of course, is to cut off areas that we don't want. Now, we're going to use a hard brush now, not maybe completely all the way to the right, but certainly. Now, there's a trick, just wanted to let you guys know, of when you're removing things. Now, I want 100% opacity here. Now, I'm obviously removing this reflected hand here. You can, when you're going across straight lines, there's a trick in Photoshop where you can shift click, which means you click at the beginning of it, and you go to the end and you hold down the shift key and click. And boom, I went across that whole area and cleaned that up just by doing that. And of course, over here, if we zoom in a bit, this is where, you might have to spend an extra few seconds with your brush, just refining this a little bit. just going up inside here just to clean up the edges there. You can see this is just the last few parts here of cleaning up. And we did this on purpose to show you exactly what Pro Mask gives you. So you've got all the editing control that you need. You just go in there, and that's what everyone's asking us about is, the removing someone with this flyaway hair. And that's it. I mean, it's a couple of minutes. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. If you were to add a shadow with, oh no, go back out, Gavin, go back in again with the layer mask. Okay, if you were to add a shadow, you couldn't do that with Studio Magic 1 unless you took the layer mask, and if you show them, Gav, you right-click and apply the layer mask. You just right-click inside there, and it'll say Apply Layer Mask.
Right here, yeah, right there.
There you go.
Yep.
Then you can add your shadow and other attributes that Studio Magic has available to you.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're going to get a big square box.
Yeah. So we're going to apply it now. Of course, you could leave it on there. You can duplicate the layer if you want to come back to it. But let's take a look at her next to the white one there on the left, and we can see if we can. I just want to make sure we can get it inside the recording area here. She's been completely removed, and we've obviously got I mean, when Alan talks about other, should we say, masking plugins for removing people from their background, I've used them all over the years, and they're quite complicated to use. But the other thing is, the only thing they do is remove people or objects from a background. They don't have the shadow caster or the light brush, which we're going to show you the shadow caster very shortly. In actual fact, we're going to show you that after this. But I do have a billboard here. This is another part of LayerCake's collections. Okay, these billboards, virtual sets is what they really we term them as. If we turn her off, we'll just show you how this works. It kind of gives you an idea. You can select the billboard, and this will show you her on a dark background. So we select her, and you just copy her to your clipboard. Control or Command C. Go back over here, and you go up to Edit, Paste Special, and paste in place. Oh no, that wasn't it. Let's go. I think you have to have an empty layer here. Okay, let's try it again. There we go. Paste special, paste into, that's it. And you can have her inside the billboard or outside the billboard. I think she works better inside for right now. And you can tilt them and, do whatever you want with them. Obviously, with their hand there at that angle, you might want to tilt it a bit. But, if you come in close here, we can see all of that white has been removed from her hair. So that's what people are looking for. Everyone's, the flyaway hair. So if there are any questions before we get on to shadows, want to make sure we cover shadows. Are there any questions, Al, or are we good to keep rolling here?
No. So far you're doing a good job, yeah.
Because I want to get into the shadows here before we jump into that other thing, Al, because they're really important. When you're compositing, when you're cutting people out of removing from their background and bringing them into other backgrounds, of course, is what this is really all about.
Yeah, we shot these gals in the studio and then put them in. Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Now, what we can see here is, of course, they look like they're floating. Okay, they don't like this billboard here. It's not a billboard, sorry. This sign, Las Vegas. This wasn't cut out. This was here. Okay, and we can see the direction of the sun. It has a hard shadow on there, and everything has a shadow. Before Alan came up with these shadows, I didn't really think about it, but of course when you're cutting people out, they have to have a shadow. And let's see how it works now with the shadow caster. Okay, this is the second part of Studio Magic 1. You just click on the shadow caster, create new shadow. Okay, it's going to, let's do the lady in the front here first. So make sure that she's selected. Hang on a second. There she is. So you click on create new shadow. It's going to put the shadow on her. And of course, you've got a lot of
No,
different
no.
shadows. No, I'm just letting them know out.
Preview sheet.
Yeah, I'm
Show
going
the
to,
preview sheet.
right,
Oh,
I'm jumping into that. You've got a
okay.
lot of presets here, and you've got a lot of, of your own presets that you can save. But as Alan said, this was something that was added fairly recently, is the Shadowcaster reference clock, okay, which gives you a kind of a cheat sheet. It's really handy to be able to see. And of course, we can see here from the sign, roughly, what would you say that is, Al, the shadow on that?
11 o'clock, you think?
Yeah, that looks close enough
try
to
11.
me. So we'll try 11. So you go to the drop down here, you go to 11, okay, and that's going to drop it to the 11 o'clock. I just want to move the layers across because we want to be able to see what we're doing here. Now, that's obviously a bit too high. We can adjust the height. We may leave make it a little bit softer, and maybe just take a little bit off of the intensity. It is still strong. I think that looks fine. You can move it around. I'm just showing you here that you can move it. I'm going to put it back to where it was. It looks fine there. But what's really great about this is, we've got the other gal here. We can copy this shadow. You've got an option here to copy the shadow. We can now select her, okay, and then we just go paste shadow, and look what it does. It copies the settings that we had on the first shadow and applies it but to her body type, okay. Now, you may want to make further adjustments to that, although I don't think I would. What do you think, Al? Would you change her shadow at all?
I'd shorten it just a
Shorten it a bit?
Okay. Just a little bit. Get it off of the pole.
Okay, I'm going to shorten it just a tad here. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
There you go.
Uh-huh. And, the shadows are just, now they look realistic. Now they're anchored to their new background. Again, with our ballerinas here, okay? They're floating. So once again, let's give our ballerina something nice. Now, just to go to the drop downs here, the wall right, you don't have to always go to the preview sheet if you don't want to. I think that looks really elegant. I like that. Of course, with this, the intensity, you would probably drop back quite a bit, soften them up a bit, maybe drop the intensity back even more. But once again, you can copy it. Click on her, and we actually had a client who had 15 ballerinas, little girls, and she had to copy the shadows into all of them, and she said, wow, it paid for itself in one photo shoot with the time-saving part of it. Do you want to add something there,
A couple questions here. Yeah, can you brush out those shadows like it hits a pole? Absolutely. Those shadows are on its own layers, so you can definitely brush the shadows out.
Yep.
And what you can do, because you have sometimes lighting from different directions, you could add 2 shadows or 3 shadows to the same subject for that matter. Mm-hmm. People get that a lot. For example, you may have an overhead light, so you'd have some shadow under the feet, and then you get a light coming from another direction. So definitely you can do that as well.
Mm-hmm. Let's do a paint with light.
Add a little paint with light with that too, Gav. Just show them what that
Yeah,
does.
Now I need to go back to my soft brush, of course.
So let me, before Gavin does that, Studio Magic 1 is a paint with light. It's cutting out shadows, and it's cutting out subjects, adding shadows, and right now he's applying the paint with light. Studio Magic 2 is where you can take an ordinary image and embellish it with one-click attributes and features. Gavin's going to get into something in a few seconds to show you the power of Studio Magic 2 and 1
right,
as well.
Yeah. So that, covers the shadows and obviously the differences between the 2 panels, okay, and how they work together and what they do for you. Let's take a look. Now, of course, these panels can be used on any photo, any of your photo. The whole point of them is working with your own photos, of course, as well as these picture windows or these virtual sets, whatever you want to call them. This is a good example. If we just go to see what Studio Magic 2 can do to a regular looking, landscape. I mean, I wouldn't even call it a landscape. It looks like it's in some kind of preserve or something.
Park.
Yeah, a park. Yeah, there you go. That was the word I was looking for. And I'm in Studio Magic 2 in Enviro. You've got all these drop downs here, of course. There's so many elements, there's so many parts to this panel, there's so many things you can do. So with Autumn, I might drop the intensity back a bit, create, and I might drop this back a little bit. What do you think, Al? It's a little bit strong.
Yeah, looks good.
Looks good. Okay.
Yeah.
And now the dabbing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
automatically, there's a brush that comes with everything. It's a layer mask brush, and you can erase, as Gavin's going to do. And what he's basically doing is the autumn filter will be covering the tree, the bark of the tree, and you want to remove that. And you want to dab a little green through the, with the grass behind the leaves. The leaves would be autumn. The grass might not be quite as filtering with that autumn color.
Yeah,
so Gav's just do a little dabbing.
Yep.
For real,
and as you can see on the layer mask here, hopefully you can see that, you know, there's little dark marks where I've been dabbing in. And
if you hit create a second time, Gav, why don't you do that? And really that doubles the intensity,
right?
Which is a little strong. So Gav, back it up about 60, 70%, something like that. Then hit update, and then you can dab again. So you have complete control as you continue to hit create. You can add or delete the intensity.
Yeah. I think I'll drop it back a bit here, but yeah, no, exactly. You could obviously keep adding as much as you want to, and it just adds another autumn season in there.
And if he wanted to, he could click and he can turn that to snow. I mean, it's absolutely amazing.
Right, but what we want to do now is we want to put in a light ray, right? So let's do that. That's under lighting effects. And these light rays are really popular. Look at this. Look, I click on the rays, beams, and bursts, and you've got all these presets here, which, I mean, we're going to pick one, but I just wanted to show you how many there are for you to, choose from. Okay, now normally the one I like is this number 4. You'll get your favorites, of course, ones that work all the time. Click on create, and that's going to bring it in. It'll be too big, that's fine. We'll resize it, update, and drop the intensity back, update, and expect to reposition it. What do you think, Al? A bit smaller? Or?
I'd say pick up the intensity a little bit, more, because you're going to be adding color, and that'll reduce the intensity.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll lift it up a little bit and have it
up here. Yeah. Is that good? Okay. Now we're going to do because the autumn color, the light of the light ray would be that kind of color. So you go to color here, and you've got a color picker. Okay. So you can click inside here, and up pops Photoshop's color picker, and what you're doing is you're going in to find the deepest hue, okay? A nice, deep autumn color. So you can keep clicking to find one that you like. That's pretty nice. And click around to get something a bit different. Let's go up here, something with a nice kind of brown orange to it. And then, when you've got that set, click OK, and then you go to local, and click on the intensity. We bump up, don't we, out to about 90%, and then create, and it's applied that with a clipping mask to get technical.
And back it off about 50% to about 50%.
Okay, update, right? Okay.
There you go.
Okay, perfect.
It's just subtle enough. And ask the question about color match. I hope this is the one that you asked, Ann. But it's just subtle enough, and the purpose of a light ray really is oftentimes to call attention to your subject, because once you go to Studio Magic 1 and you paint with light, you paint the light ray onto the subject, and the rest of the background is sort of vignetted out, and the subject matter is really what's important and what's depicted.
Right. So now I think what we'll do is we'll flatten this and put on a reflection now, yeah? But now, Now, there is one thing I just want to bring your attention to. As you can see up here, this is a 16-bit image, and as you're probably well aware, there are quite a number of filters and other things that don't work in Photoshop on 16-bit images, okay? So you would just go up here and it would have to be dropped back to an 8-bit image, okay? And that way we can use the reflections, which is an absolutely amazing part of this panel. I mean, this is really something. The entire image I've got selected here. I'll drop the ripples back to very few ripples, and the cooling. We don't need any cooling. It's a very still day, so you wouldn't have many ripples. And then you click Create, okay? And I'm going to minimize these other images in the back so they don't distract us. We can see how realistic that is, and the only thing is it's a bit high, so I'm going to drop the height back a bit to shorten it a bit, update, and there we go. Maybe shorten it a bit more, update. But we can see, you know, maybe drop the ripples back as it's such a still day. Just have a few ripples, update. There we go. That looks about right, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and now what we're going to do is we are going to bring in a subject. Now, she's already been cut out. We've already shown you a number of cutouts with the panel there. We don't have to keep cutting people out all the time. But we want to show you how these, you know, mainly Studio Magic works on its own. We need to resize her, of course. She's sitting there by the water's edge. Bring her down to the edge there. And we need to color match her as well, of course, so that she fits in. She needs to be a bit smaller, doesn't she? What do you think, Al? Or is she about right?
What are people? Let's get a few people's opinions. What do you think, guys? Bigger or smaller? Come on, Ann, tell me. What do you think?
Bigger or smaller? Bigger or smaller? Going once.
Smaller. She's too big. Okay.
All right, now we got it.
Okay. Ray says, Davey says she's too big. Smaller. Okay.
All right.
Very good.
There we go.
Smaller.
I think that's about as small
right.
as we need, right? Isn't it?
Yeah. Now, typically, what's happening? She's very pale, and you're going to get that because when you're shooting somebody in a studio and/or with other types of lighting, and you try to drag them in, well, you have thought about that, and therefore, Gavin is going to go back into the lighting effects, and he's going to create the color match to match the warmth of the background, and
we can use the same color, right? The same one that we had before.
Yeah, I would use the same color, except I would erase some of it off of her jeans once you do it.
Right. So let's do create. Okay, so as Al said, I might drop it back a bit. I don't think it needs to be that strong. Yeah.
Just a hint of color.
Right. Yeah, just a little bit. So we can see now, if I turn it off and now turn it on again, we can see what it's giving us, okay? It's just blended her nicely, but as Alan said, we really don't want it probably on a hair, on a jeans.
Let me make a suggestion, Gav. Click the color off again and try warming this time. So go to...
you want to turn this off and try something different?
Yeah, and click on her again. Make sure you select her, in the palette, select her.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. Hang on a sec. Let me grab her.
There you go.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, try warming. I think warming's going to be a little bit better.
Okay.
Yeah, warming's better.
Yeah, it is
definitely.
Yeah, it is better. I still drop the intensity back a bit though. We don't need a lot of it on her. So I'm gonna, as Al said, we're gonna take it off of, you know, a lot of her clothes here. We don't really need it on there. Maybe off of her hair. It's entirely up to you, of course. We're just showing you all of the different things you can do here. What we do need, of course, is a shadow on her. So I need to select her again because, you know, she's sitting there. She needs a shadow. Let's back out of it a bit. Let's go back to our Studio Magic here. Studio Magic 1, of course, Shadow Caster.
Dave Scott said she needs a shadow. Dave, you're getting this shadow. Go ahead.
There you go. Yep. What you wish for, you got it. So I'm dropping the intensity back a bit and softening it a bit. Maybe not that soft. I think that's fine. I think actually I think it's at 2 o'clock, or the shadow comes in at 2. I think that's about right, isn't it now?
Yeah, it looks good. It looks good because of the light ray. Probably a little forward, but you'd have to play with it. We don't have a lot of time left, Gab, but
Okay. So
everybody gets the idea.
yeah, exactly. And now, of course, we need a reflection of her in the water. Okay, so let's go to reflections. There we go. Selected subject. I'm going to drop the ripples way back so we can see her. We don't want any cooling on it. And then do create. And
You got to bring the intensity.
there we go. Intensity's got to go up. Yep. Update. Look at that. That's really cool. Yeah. I don't think we need more ripples in it. I think we got plenty.
No.
So if we zoom
Looks
out,
good.
and now, I mean, look at that. Look what we've done to that image in a couple of minutes. Something that would take you, I don't know, manually doing it an hour or so. And that's if you were really into Photoshop all the time. Now we can add. I like this where we add in the compositor. We add the birds. Now, we haven't really touched on the birds. You've got all of these really cool birds that you can add. In this particular case, we're going to put in the waterfowl, which is our famous swans. Yeah, that's it. Create. They're going to come in a bit too big, but that's okay. We're going to resize them, update, and bring them back here. They come in with their own shadow, so put them in the water. Any questions?
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. You'll be getting, obviously, all of our emails, and you've got Alan's phone number and mine. Any questions, let us know. So, yeah, let us know. We really appreciate you coming out. Thanks a lot, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.